All right, everyone. Well, this week I thought we'd explore manipulating text in a very different way. I want to create kind of a fake 3D look with two-dimensional letters. But the problem is, if you've messed around with, a text effect before, you go to distort some text, and depending on how you distort it, you might get some jagged edges on there sometimes. In fact, if we go in here, let's go ahead and set. I'm going to tell you, let's do. I was inspired by a movie on this, which was actually a movie called U571. So we'll just do 578. Why not? So I'm going to go ahead and create, I'm going to Command or Control T to free transform this text and bring it up to a good size. And I actually want to change the font too. I'm going to double click the text icon layer, and let's change the text. And I want to use this Terminator font that I found on the font site. It's DAFONT, for those of you that don't know. It's a free font site. It's really cool stuff. So I'm just going to free transform this a little bit more because it went a little big there. And let's go ahead and fill in the frame here. Now, if I go in here, I'm actually going to duplicate this text. So, because I want to prove my point here, I'm going to go ahead and rasterize this text by Control or right-clicking on it and going into the menu here and choosing Rasterize Type. Now let's lock the transparency. I'm going to fill it with white, and white is set as my background, so I'm just going to Command Delete on that. And now I'm going to bring up Free Transform, and I'm going to Control or right-click directly on that object, and I'll get this menu, and I'm going to choose Distort. Now notice, when I go to distort the lettering here, that when I commit it, you can see how jagged and rough this edge is here. It's kind of clean over here, but it just gets really just bad because we've resampled it up, basically, what we've done. And by resampling, it's just going to add pixels in there. And that just doesn't look good. So what we're going to do is on this original text layer, I'm going to go ahead and fill it with white. And we're going to Control or right-click directly on the layer in the empty space of the layer here. And we're going to go here to Convert to Shape. There it converts it into a vector shape. So now what I want to do is move this up slightly. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer, drag it down to the new layer icon. And on this one underneath, I'm going to go under the Edit menu and choose Transform Path. And we're going to do Flip Vertical. Then we'll just nudge this down until it's right underneath there. Basically what we're creating is a reflection. Now I want this reflection to fade down as it goes. Now obviously we're looking at a shape layer which has a vector mask on it, but I want to fade it. So in order to fade something, I'm going to have to use a layer mask. And you can in fact add a layer mask along with a vector mask on this. Simply click the layer mask icon and it adds a new icon here for the layer mask. Let's go ahead and grab our gradient tool, going from black to transparent, which is the second icon here. I'm just going to go into the graphic and I'm going to hold down my shift key and just drag upwards from the bottom of this lettering to the top right here. And there it gives me a nice fade. If I click in the empty area of my layers, you can see it's got text with a nice reflection. Everything looks great. Well, I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. Now what I want to do is I'm going to click this top layer. I'm going to hold down my shift key and add to that layer selection by highlighting both of these layers. Now I'm going to press Command or Control T again. And with both layers selected, I'm just going to go into the flyout menu here by holding down my Control key or right-clicking on it. And we're going to go to Distort, just as we did earlier. But now, when I distort this text, you can now notice that it will not affect the quality. So I give this a really big distortion here. Let's kind of bring that down to right about there. And when I press enter, watch what happens. As I zoom in here, those edges are staying nice and clean. And that's because it's a vector mask. It's not rasterized. It's not pixel-based graphics. They're vector-based, which means it's going to hold its quality no matter how much I distort it. In fact, I'm going to take this layer here and actually create a duplicate of that one. And I'm going to move it between, or actually beneath this top layer here. But since this is a shape layer, I'm just going to double-click the icon here and it will pull up the color picker. And I'm just going to fill this with black. So let's move this down to black and click OK. Now, with that mask selected, we can't see it obviously because it's behind this lettering. But I'm going to bring up Free Transform yet again and also go to Distort. And to create a shadow, we're just going to grab this top middle handle and just push it back. And we'll just manipulate these handles here until the lettering casts a shadow, kind of giving us a three-dimensional look, which is exactly what we're going for here. Let's just move that up. Now, here's a little thing. As I'm moving these handles around, you can notice that you might see it snapping to the edge of the graphic or the edge of the document. If you want to bypass that temporarily, just simply hold down your control key and you can freely move the graphic around. So now I can position that a little bit better. Maybe distort that just a little bit more. Position that right there. Again, I'm holding down the control key just so I can maneuver that without it snapping to the edge of anything like that. And we'll just put that there. And when I'm all done, I just simply press enter. Click in the empty area. So now we've got a nice shadow going on there. Let's just drop the opacity of that layer a little bit. And there we've got seemingly 3D text. And we didn't lose any quality. We converted them to shapes, distorted them, and we can distort, as you saw, we distorted the shadow even after we've distorted it the first time. We distorted it even more, and it's still retaining those sharp edges because of it being a shape layer. So, different ways of dealing with text. By converting them into a shape layer, you have a lot more freedom and a lot more options when it comes to distorting it and getting a really interesting effect.